Hello, and welcome to my Definitely Not a TED Talk. I'm Kate Dohe, and I'm the manager of digital programs and initiatives for the University of Maryland Libraries. And today, I won't be telling you a single thing about how to use Trello, or Jira, or Basecamp, or Airtable, or Asana, or Pivotal Tracker, or any other project management tracking software on the market, honestly. Instead, I'm going to be talking about project management, but not how to perform it or how it can be useful or how to get better at it or what flavors of project management are best for libraries, personnel, and projects. Actually, I'm going to be talking about power. But first, I need to talk a little bit about me. I'm a library project manager. I'm largely self-taught, and I came to project management pretty much entirely in the context of technology work, libraries, and otherwise that I've been involved with over the course of my career. I've been cited and invited as an expert in project management in all those systems I just named, and by and large, I actually enjoy this work and I find those tools and techniques to be effective. But I'm also representative of a problem that I want to talk about today. Which is this creep of project management into the operational work of library workers and how it's commonly approached as a tools-driven specialty, what I believe the underlying causes of that are. So to start, I'd like to offer this working definition of project management in libraries. My definition is informed by Jennifer Vinnipal's prior work as well as the American Libraries Association definitions, but I have added to accomplish a change in library services, systems, spaces, or operations, which is going to be important later. There's some general agreement that project management is a growing aspect of professional librarianship, and at the time of this presentation, I could turn up over 50 active positions on ALA job lists that specify project management as part of the position, the requirements, or both. It's like an invasive species, and it seems to be unexpectedly cropping up in position descriptions as varied as library systems, curatorial jobs, and youth services librarians. Project management is a single bullet point in a lot of library jobs, but it's also an invisible part of the work carried out by library personnel who may not necessarily have project management in their duties, but find themselves suddenly managing projects all the same. So given that increase in project-driven work in libraries, the ALA's Library Leadership and Management Association, which is now CORE, embarked on a study of project management in 2018, which included a survey of practicing library project managers, and they published their final report in 2021, which reveals a number of interesting results from survey respondents, and I'd like to highlight a few of those. Just that one, most respondents identified as self-taught or never receiving formal training in project management. A significant majority of respondents indicate less than half of their time is devoted to project management, even though about 70% of that group have managed more than 4 projects in 5 years. And the leading choice, though only by a few votes, for training topics on project management within the library is software and tools. I find this state of affairs to be problematic in several ways. First, I would also assert that when project manager work is commonly distributed across library personnel with other responsibilities and possibly in many different departments, that this leads to competing priorities and burnout by personnel. There's also a lack of a centralized understanding of the work and who's investing their energy. For sure, I've directly observed that in my own organizations. Furthermore, I think that it's pretty important to note that project managers in private industry certainly make more than the going rate for librarians, and so this proliferation of project management in library roles often strikes me as a way to accomplish those professional results without paying for it necessarily. What I find quite frustrating, though, is that library workers who are spending sometimes less than half of their work time managing a significant project portfolio aren't necessarily gaining the experience, formal training, and literal hours needed to pursue a career as professional project managers if they ever wanted to change careers. So the question to me is, who is benefiting the most within this environment and with that labor structure? And spoiler alert, I don't think that it's library workers, and I don't think that it's our users. If we understand library project managers as personnel who are tasked with implementing and coordinating library changes, and that they often have a lack of specialized education or organizational support, then I would argue that those pressures lead to a project management approach that focuses on tools and software as a means of rapidly performing project management. I think that's especially true when considering their closest industry neighbor for project management is software development. And I would guess that often exposure to project management within a library originates from the development team and their closest colleagues. And I'm one of them. So it's easy to stand up a Trello board and point others to it to communicate status updates. And so we tend to create them over and over again. Those projects start to serve as evidence of our organizational change and evolution and of our agility. But I actually think that that's a manifestation of solutionism, which is the idea that technology can resolve complex and fluid systemic social problems and also shifts the responsibility for that down to individuals rather than tackling meaningful structural change. So the concept originates with Evgeny Morozov's work To Save Everything, Click Here, though he himself borrows it from urban planning and design. And importantly, in this definition, solutionism presumes the scope of the problem than its technical fix without fully interrogating what that problem is in the first place. It's worth noting that solutionism and design thinking tend to have some overlaps in this, although I don't have time to explore that more fully here. In the library project management context, project management benefits often read to me like compensating for organizational dysfunction. There are a lot of common watchwords and terms for project management, like building relationships and breaking down silos and engaging stakeholders without, and I've been guilty of this myself, asking very critical questions about why the relationships are broken, who creates the silos, and why stakeholders have been disengaged. A Trello board ends up being saddled with the singular responsibility of fixing our communication problems or our fundamental anxieties about productivity that really need to be resolved by cultural change and leadership. Project management then just becomes the latest way to grapple with systemic organizational dysfunction and shift responsibility for solving those problems down to personnel and away from leadership. I don't find it curious at all that project management literature spends very little time discussing the role that leadership plays in creating a culture that supports the vulnerability and willingness to fail that Agile purportedly requires. Instead, we focus our energies on short-term goals. But maybe we are looking at the problem wrong. Bigger question is what's driving the changes to so many services with this particular method at this particular time? Why do we need to show our work on so many Trello boards? Have we ever heard from our users that we need to be more agile and run more projects? Or is that coming from elsewhere entirely in our organizations? I would name this as managerialism in action. I'm using this summary from Gender, Power, and Managerialism in Universities, and ultimately, managerialism carries significant harms for women, people of color, and other historically disenfranchised communities who need to work in such environments. I tend to believe that a culture that harms employees inevitably harms those who we are supposed to serve, whether that's our patrons or students, unaffiliated researchers, or university faculty. And the values that we internalize in our work very much matter to the services we offer and the systems we maintain. Ordinarily, I like to end presentations with some clarity, some actions, but I'll be vulnerable for a second. I'm deeply conflicted. Like I said at the top, I like project management, and I don't think that it's inherently bad. The work still needs to get done. I cannot burn my Trello boards in effigy, no matter how much I may want to sometimes, but I hope that I can spark a discussion of how to approach this work critically with an eye to the systems that we are caught within. Thank you. And this is my references and some selected resources for you as well.